I've never dated JFK Jr., but I know his type. I was on a boat. I could not leave. If you don't get the ick from that, you got to be more delusional. Oh my God, where do I even begin? Hello and welcome to Boy Problems. My name is Liz. And before we get into today's episode, I want to remind you to subscribe, okay? Because a lot of people who listen to the podcast are not subscribed and it hurts my feelings. So make sure to subscribe, leave a review. It really helps the magical algorithm make her way to find more people to join our amazing friend group. So thank you for doing your part. It really means a lot. If you are watching this on YouTube or Spotify, you're gonna notice that I'm wearing a really cool Walkman. I'm not really listening to a Walkman, but I look like I am. I'm wearing these really cool headphones. They are from the 1900s, from the 1990s. They are from the 90s. They're from a different time, and the only reason that I'm wearing them is that all of the headphones now that they make them flat with the flat edge. One of my biggest pet peeves is wires. Like, it is wire related. I feel like being an adult is just having more responsibilities and then having like a meltdown over a wire being changed without your knowing. And the latest one to affect me today is the headphone wire. Why is it flat now? Why is it flat? And it used to be round, and now I'm forced to use like a headset from, before times, which I don't hate, because all of the flat ones don't go into, the little holes. So stop changing the holes, guys. Don't just keep them the same. Also, okay, our last episode about whimsy maxing is getting so much positive reaction. I love all of your comments. It's been giving me, it's so nice to put out something that is helpful to people. That is like that's where I feel the happiest. And you know what's pretty whimsy? The mug that I am drinking out of right now. If you're watching this on Spotify or watching this on YouTube, you're going to see that I'm drinking out of my new favorite mug. It's our Boy Problems mug, and I love it because it says, "But Daddy, I love to fix him." My friend Simon came up with that, and he hasn't even been in any of my therapy sessions, and yet he knew that this was my vibe. This was my vibe. I do love to fix men, but one of the main paths to whimsy maxing is taking something that is could be very ordinary and very boring, and make it very exciting and spectacular and like enchanting. And I think mugs are a really good example of that, because if you're like a lot of people, you wake up in the morning and you're going to drink some sort of beverage. Some of us are better than everyone else and are drinking water and lemon, which once a quarter, I'll buy some lemons at the grocery store and I'll be like, this is the time I'm going to drink lemon water. It's my moment. It's my new personality. I'm going to be one of those people. And then I don't do it. That's actually being whimsy, is also accepting what's not going to be, what is not in the cards for you, and what that's in the cards for someone else. Or maybe there's a future version of you that does drink, I think it's supposed to be hot water and lemon. I don't know why, but that's what I've heard. I'm not doing that, but I love to drink a little coffee or a little tea, or if you make yourself a little home matcha, or if you just want some water, pour it into a Boy Problems merch mug, or any mug. It could be a mug that you had as a kid that you still have hung on to. It could be a mug of Beyonce, for all I care about. But yeah, mugs are great. I love mugs. I love also just where you're like, what mug am I today? It's sort of, I guess guys don't have this as much as women, but you can really change your whole day based on your outfit. And I invite men to partake in this activity. When I wake up and I'm down in the dumps, now's the time to wear all pink. I'm pulling out the weirdest thing in my closet and I'm looking like a kindergarten teacher because I'm gonna cheer myself up. So you can do that with a mug. Mugs and clothes are portal to whimsy maxing. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, then go listen to our last episode about whimsy maxing because it's really fun and I really love it. I'm also wearing pajamas that feel pretty whimsy to me. But whimsy is a state of mind, and everyone has a different way of expressing it. And so pajamas that are whimsy to you might not be whimsy to me, and vice versa. But I'm feeling pretty good. I'm feeling pretty damn good. I know we often talk about men, but I have a specific kind of man that I want to talk about today on the show. And that is a very hot, a very famous, and a very rich man. When a man has those three characteristics, you're in trouble. You're in trouble. You're either going to marry him or he's going to ruin your life. And there is no in between. And the reason why I want to talk about this kind of man is that it has been popping up in my feed. It has been popping up a lot. And I have to say, there's been a lot of hot, rich guy propaganda out there. I'm just going to say it. And you know where it's from. It's from Love Story, the Hulu show about JFK Jr. and Carolyn Bessette. If you haven't watched it yet, well, it's controversial because the Kennedy family is very against it. Obviously, they've been through so many tragedies, that being the death of JFK Jr. and Carolyn Bessette being, one of the most prominent ones and the most public ones. And so they're very against the show, okay? But the show is so good. It is like millennial corporate girly porn, okay? And by that, I mean the main character, Carolyn Bessette, is just a regular girl. She's you. She's living in a studio apartment that she can't afford. She's having cigarettes for breakfast. She commutes to work on the subway and is sitting in a shitty cubicle, kind of like deal, like an open desk situation, but like from the 90s. Like there's no window. There's no free kind bars, and she's being disrespected by a female, like by a more senior female boss, which is a canon event. It's a canon event. If you've never had a female boss be like really mean to you for no reason, I want to hear from you because I need to know. I need to know what you did. Look, and we have bad male bosses. Obviously, we've had a lot of conversations about that, but it is very frequent for, especially I think like millennial women who were just very much in the office. I think that's why I'm saying it's millennial, because I feel like now people don't go into the office as much. And so, I don't know, bullying by Zoom must still happen. But it is just such a common experience to be undermined by a more senior woman at your company or in your workplace. And that anytime that you sort of try and shine or try and do something that's a little bit different, try and take some initiative, she kind of puts you back in your place. And this is exactly what happens in the first episode. And then she meets JFK Jr. Okay? The man that everyone wants. Guys want to be like him. Girls want to be with him. You know the type. And so all of a sudden, she gets the respect of not only her female boss. Well, her female boss just like still hates her, but she like basically she becomes more important than her at the company. She works at Calvin Klein and has JFK Jr., sort of like showing up at the office at Calvin Klein to see her for all of her other coworkers to see. And that scene, I really do think is millennial girly corporate porn. I really think if you're a corporate girly, that's your dream. That's your dream. I'm sorry. There's no better day at the office. So look, I get the popularity of the show. I get, even if you're not watching it, this is the dream. This is the fantasy. But I will say that I'm a little bit troubled by the amount, well, not in a like real way, but I am troubled by the fact that this show and all of the social media discourse around it seems to be encouraging the idea for women to be like saved by a rich, super famous guy who's just going to choose them and who's going to make everything okay. And I'm sensitive to that because I have fallen for that. I've fallen for that propaganda. Gosh, I feel like honestly, until very recently, until I learned the hard way, that was, I mean, it wasn't my goal in life, but I think it felt like, oh, this will be my ticket out. This will be my ticket out of my precarious financial situation, or the fact that I'm not feeling a lot of purpose in my life right now. And I'm not feeling really excited about my job, for example, or I'm not really feeling excited about where I live, or my apartment kind of sucks. My things are not going well with my friends. I'm not having a lot of fun. And then you think, well, if I can date one of these guys, like then my life will improve. The secret is that it doesn't. Okay, so basically what I want to do before we get into boy problems is to de-influence you from thinking that dating a really, really rich, famous guy is going to solve all of your problems. And look, like I've never dated JFK Jr. I don't know what that was like, but I know his type. Okay, let me just say that. I know his type. Reason number one is that everyone, and this applies across the board, honestly, whether the person is like high status or this is just like a crush, or maybe you have a crush on someone who's, you know, high up at work or something like that, right? Like it doesn't, you know, you don't have to be literally dating JFK Jr. to, I think, relate to the idea of like wanting to upgrade your life via a man. And I really think this is less common than it used to be. But as usual, when we're in unstable economic, social times, I think that there's this resurgence of like soft feminist life, like stay-at-home girlfriend energy. And I think that's why this show is touching that nerve. And for the men listening who date women, I will also be touching on high status women. Hot, famous women are like a different beast, and I will be getting into that. But a high status person, period, whether they're a woman or a man, they almost always, like I'm trying to think of an exception to this and I can't, where most of the time what you see when they are far away is the best version of them because it is far away. And this applies basically to crushes across the board, or even this is really good advice for people who are in relationships and maybe develop crushes on other people and they think, oh my God, does this mean I want to leave my partner? Most of the time, if you want to get rid of a crush, get to know the person. Get to know the person. And this really applies to the hot famous person. If you want to stop obsessing about them, get to know them. Get to know them. You will see a much more nuanced and complex version of them. And so they will be more real. So here's an example. I meet this guy on a dating app and he is wealthy, like not just wealthy, like wealthy, really, really rich. To the point, you know, so wealthy he doesn't look rich. I feel like that's a type of person who just come from such old money that actually like they're sort of trained to look very normal. So he invited me on this trip to Greece. Oh my God, where do I even begin? Where do I even begin about the disillusionment of this trip? Okay, first of all, this person is not a bad person, but yeah, like at the beginning it was like, oh, I'm gonna get your flight and we're gonna be on this boat and do you want to invite your friends and you can meet my really cool friends, and his, you know, friends were really smart and interesting, and there was a chef on the yacht. It was Love Story, right? It felt like a Disney movie, and at the time financially it was not good. So you know, here comes this guy who wants to take me on this amazing vacation, wants to invite my friend, and then we get there and I'm unfortunately getting to know him. You know, that is it would have been perfect if that would have never happened, but we, you know, are chatting and I realized that he politically is very diametrically opposed to me in ways that I believe at one point he said, you know, I don't think we should have democracy, you know, so that's not going to work. He basically was like, Saudi Arabia is a really good model. And I was like, are we, where's the camera? Am I on punked? And then he proceeded to defend Harvey Weinstein, who he, I guess, had friends in common with. And what's nuts about the fact that I'm telling this story is that he basically told me at the time, which is several years ago, the exact talking point that Harvey Weinstein is now talking about in his like Rikers interview, ? If you haven't seen it, don't do it. But yeah, Harvey Weinstein apparently is giving interviews because whatever, it's 2026. The world is on fire. Harvey Weinstein thinks that he didn't rape all of those women because they knew what was going to happen. So I guess if you know you're going to be raped, which I guess if you're a woman is just at any point, then it's fine. Then it's fine. And I remember him saying that to me at the time. I definitely dissociated because I was on a boat. I could not leave. And thank God I was there with my friend. And of course, there were many other positive things. well, not about him, but like, I'm describing, he wasn't a monster, but it was definitely not a fit. And so, yeah, get to know him up close. That's number one. Because look, it's my drug of choice is not alcohol. It is not drugs. It is not scrolling. It is fantasy. I love fantasy. And I didn't realize how much of it was really like a coping mechanism for me that I probably developed like as a kid. When you are dealing with difficult situations when you're a child, there's all kinds of different ways that you make yourself feel better, right? And it's beautiful. It helps you survive. But I definitely over-indexed on fantasy, and thank God I did, because this is why I'm here today. But I have had so much of my work as an adult is realizing how much I have to let go of fantasy, and that I have to focus on reality, not fantasy. I guess I was like patient zero for lusting after very sort of fancy people, because the fantasy is, oh my God, if they like me, if they choose me, then I will be chosen by the person who has the most amount of choice. And so that must mean I'm okay. That was really, really how simple it was for me. Realizing that was what was like behind all of my decisions, or not all of my decisions, but a lot of my decisions and choices really helped me have a much more healthier, helped me have much healthier relationships, and not just with romantic relationships, but with friendships as well. So if you have a crush on someone, get to know them. The second thing is, okay, a rich, really famous guy is not going to solve any of your problems. And I really, really mean this. I really mean this. Even if you think that they will solve your financial situation, right? Which seems like the most obvious one. If someone has a lot of wealth and power, when you get married with them, you're sharing in that wealth. If someone has the ability to get you out of poverty, they also have the ability to keep you there. And you never want to give that kind of leverage to anybody, especially not a man. It is just a really, really bad idea. So even if you think, oh, they'll solve a financial problem, no, because you're now going to have a whole other set of problems regarding your financial situation, where you will need to acquiesce or agree or go along with things that you don't want, because they are, money is control ultimately. And it is so rare. It is so rare that money is given for free. There is no such thing as free money. There's no such thing as free labor. Again, I learned it the hard way. Even when someone says, I don't want something in return, this is a gift. It is very rare that it is, especially if it's a very large gift, right? Especially if it's I'm going to pay off your student loans. I'm going to buy you a breast reduction, which happened to a friend of mine. And then, oh my God, you don't want to know what happened next. So free money doesn't exist. And then I think that, there's this fantasy that all of your problems of self-esteem, and finally I'll feel happy and loved. And no, you won't. No, you won't. Or again, maybe you will. Maybe if you are dating a hot, rich, famous person and it solved all your problems, give me a call. I want to hear from you. But typically it only will add more problems, because they are essentially like a business in themselves very often. If they're not sort of independently wealthy, they're tied to a family that's very wealthy. And so that's where you have, it's in the Love Story show, right? Like Carolyn Bessette is sort of like in this now really complicated family dynamic that she has to fit into. But even if they're independently wealthy, like their life is like a business. And so you have to sort of go along with the business in a really, really strange way. Dating a really high status person looks so good on the outside. The pictures will be great. What people are going to think is going to be, people are going to be like, oh my God, and assume all kinds of things about your life. The gap between how it looks and how it feels is so wide. Bill Gates and Melinda Gates. Do I have to say anything more? Do I have to say anything more? The partnership between Bill Gates and Melinda Gates, I'm sure, was something that people, again, like she met him at work, and I dreamed about this a lot. One of my core fantasies was if I'm with someone who has a lot of financial security, then I'll be able to just be a philanthropist, just do philanthropy and like have my little nonprofit and just do like good in the world. Look at what happened to her. Damn. I mean, look at what happened to her. According to the Epstein files, I mean, I don't even want to, but like the things that have come out in the Epstein files that Bill Gates allegedly has done to Melinda Gates is just absurd. And I guess this is the thing. I have like pretty good sources on a really famous couple. Okay. They are like one of the top 5 globally known, really, really high powered couples. And he 100% is, I know people who have recently slept with him, right? And I don't think that she is doing that. And that is just a really typical arrangement, because men who have a lot of options, particularly men who have a lot of options, Jeff Bezos' ex-wife, Mackenzie Scott, donated $7.2 billion to philanthropic causes in 2025. That was just 1 year. So, maybe it is good to marry rich and then divorce him and then take all the money you help make him and just give it away. I kind of do love that. I will say that is like a cool arc. That's a cool arc. Okay, if your plan is to do that, then do it. But the other thing about rich, hot, famous guys is that if you're dating them, this will be so unexpected. You will kind of become the guy. I know. Okay, so you will become the guy in the relationship, because being a man who's famous is kind of feminine, especially if they are an actor or they are a musician or even a politician. Okay? It is kind of feminine, and I say feminine obviously in the most binary kind of way, but if we think about feminine as being the one who is receiving, right? They are used to being catered to. Okay. So people are making sure that they're well fed, that they're comfortable, that the temperature is good for them in the airplane or whatever. So things really tend to revolve around them. And so when you are dating one of those guys, I think in a typical heterosexual dynamic, the woman will be more likely to be like catered to, right? Like the guy is pursuing you. He's trying to make time for you. He's like, I'm available, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Can I come and get you here? And when you're the woman, you end up kind of having to fit into his schedule, his needs. And again, not to say that doesn't happen in heterosexual partnerships, but yeah, they will just have a lot. Oh, like my tummy hurts. Like I can't see you. Like I swear to God, if you don't get the ick from that, I mean, guys are allowed to have their tummy hurts. Okay, I'm not saying that, but the amount of things that they will cancel for that, like. You're like, get your shit together. Once I was dating this really hot actor, and he canceled because he cut his finger cooking. And look, like the reason why I know that it wasn't like I had to go to the ER and I have like stitches was that this was like a repeated cycle. Like, oh, I have to cancel because I kind of slipped on my bike, and I'm like, okay, but like we're not going like jet skiing, It's very diva. They're divas, and divas are women. You're not really supposed to be a diva if you're a guy. I think you should be the diva. If you're a woman and you're dating a guy, you should be the diva in the relationship. And when you're with some of these guys, you kind of end up, they're kind of the diva and you're like, what? There's this meme going around that's like, for the first time in history, women aren't marrying men for financial stability and material things, just solely based on their characters, and we're all single. And I really do relate to that. It's this sort of idea that men want to get a lot of money so that they can get women, and women want to get a lot of money so that they don't have to be with a man or they don't have to rely on a man. And I really do think that it is like that in this sort of day and age. And by the way, you can have fun with a hot, famous, high status person. You can have fun with them. It's just basically they're good they're really fun boyfriends, but they're not great partners. I was dating this singer and I was really in love with him. And I remember talking to my really good friend, Mateen, and he had said that this really famous divorce attorney had said she sees so many divorces happen because of this, where women will marry the guy who's a great boyfriend, but who's a terrible husband. And I think, yeah, a rock star, super fun boyfriend. Terrible, not terrible, but like challenging husband. It sounds so fun to be on the road with a guy who's like filling out literal stadiums when you're 31 and working remotely. It's a lot less fun when you have 2 kids and you're the only one taking care of them. So yeah, have fun with the hot famous guys, and don't let the sort of short-term thrill and all of the fun. Oh, look, you'll have so much fun and you will feel so much chemistry, because very often these guys are hot. Okay. They're hot and famous for a reason. And the thing that I do think I needed to hear is like, if they're really charming to you, they're really charming to a lot of people too. If they make you feel really special, sometimes it's because you're just soulmates and there's just this intense connection that he's never going to have with anyone else. Or maybe he just is really good at making people feel special. And that will happen a lot. Think about it, because once you get attached, it's over. And then, yeah, hot famous women are also, especially if they're, look, famous people, it's hard to be, it's a really weird experience to be famous. And I think it really just gives you a certain amount of like brain damage. And so if you're going to be involved with anybody who has that many eyes on them, it's usually not going to look like what they look like on on TV. Let's just put it that way. And the reason why I wanted to talk about this is that there's been a lot of chatter about the JFK Jr. lookalike contests that have been happening sort of all over the country. And one of the posts about the contest showing a side-by-side of JFK Jr. and the men who showed up to this competition says, "We're living in such delusional times." And I guess what happened is that, well, first of all, JFK Jr., I don't know if anyone has ever been hotter. Maybe like the guy from Superman, I don't know his name. So basically JFK Jr. is a hot guy to sort of like be like. But if you look at this post, if you're watching this on Spotify and YouTube, I'm going to show it to you, but you can look it up yourself. The guys are not, I mean, they have brown hair, and they're wearing a backwards cap. It's so interesting, right? Because there was a season of Love is Blind a couple years ago where a woman, I mean, the men in Love is Blind crack me up for so many reasons. One of the reasons is the way that they will ask the women questions that are explicitly trying to figure out what they actually look like, when the entire, premise of the show is that love is blind and therefore you're going to fall in love without seeing the person. So the guys are always trying to ask like these sort of sneaky questions. And one of these guys, he asked the woman that he was dating, he said, "What's your celebrity lookalike?" Which, kudos. Like that's a really great way to know what someone looks like. So he asks her, "What's your celebrity lookalike?" And she says Megan Fox. And she does, have a lot of similar features to Megan Fox. Like her face does really look, similar, but her body type is different from Megan Fox, because obviously most people's body type is different from Megan Fox. There was sort of all of this internet discourse laughing at her for saying that she looked like Megan Fox. And yet the men who are showing up at these lookalike contests, are giving that energy. Let's just put it that way. There's a woman online that made this really good comparison where she said, imagine if there had been a Margot Robbie lookalike contest and a bunch of women who just have blonde hair would have shown up, and how they would have been mocked and humiliated and laughed at. And that the men who are showing up at these contests for literally the hottest man on earth, who are kind of mid, just think like, yeah, sure, I can look like I look like JFK Jr. And this is where I'm reminded that women and men are on a spectrum. And look, there's a lot of women who are really full of themselves, and there are a lot of men who are insecure. I'm not saying, it's clear cut in that way, but women just consistently have like not enough confidence, and men consistently have too much. And I want to invite us all to meet in the middle and realize how amazing it is when we're together, because I think women can bring down men a notch, and men can bring up women a notch. And then maybe we'll all be a lot happier. Men aren't really allowed to dress up, in the way that women are encouraged. So maybe men are really into lookalike contests because it gives them this sort of permission structure to dress up like girls have done since the beginning of time. I mean, I love to dress up. I'm not hating on lookalike contests. Keep doing them. I think that they're so funny, but it is funny to see men show up to them, and it's just amazing to me to think like, wow, what if I thought that I looked like Penelope Cruz? Like, what if I like had that amount of delusion? And again, I've said this before with men and their brains, where I go, if this is true, what else is true? What more do you think you can do? And wow, like how inspiring. I really do think men's amount of delusion, it should not be shamed. It should be a form of inspiration for women. The JFK Jr. lookalike contest participants are just one more reminder for women that you are not delusional enough. You got to be more delusional. So yeah, this is a sign to let your boys play dress up, so that they don't embarrass themselves at a lookalike contest when they grow old, okay? I feel like if boys would be allowed to play dress up a little bit more, if we all play dress up a little bit more, the world would be a better place. Okay, so let's get into some boy problems. So this first boy problem is from Fanny. My 52-year-old partner of 17 years regresses to adolescence when we visit his parents. Today, I cooked lunch, then washed up because otherwise his mom would have done it. He's watching sports with his father. I've been trying to encourage them to get home help as we live 2.5 hours away, and she's just had a fall and can't get in and out of the car safely. This is not new, but the consequences are getting more dire. Shit has made contact with Fan. So he's not even just becoming an adolescent, he's becoming your adolescent. It would be one thing if he's just like watching sports with his dad and not doing anything, and his mom is doing everything, but it seems like she can't. So yeah, you're his mom when you go over to his house. This isn't working for you. He's 52 years old. Okay, here's the thing. I think that a lot of men, I have not experienced this. And I was talking about this with my girlfriends the other day, where like, I've never really experienced dating a guy who doesn't clean up after himself. I, have a friend whose boyfriend is like literally, I think in his late 50s, and he got divorced and then they started dating. And one of the things that she immediately sort of noticed was like his ex-wife, I guess, did a lot of things for him. And so he would like leave the towel, like the wet towel on the bed, and he would just like not clean up after himself, or like not, refill the toilet paper. And like, I'm really lucky. I've never dated a guy like that. I've dated kind of honestly guys who had like who are like a little OCD, and like actually like diagnosed OCD. Like they were kind of clean freaks, and it kind of made me cleaner to have to, really, I noticed that being clean and picking up after ourselves was like really important. And so I've never had that issue. I've not never had that issue. I have met guys who don't clean up after themselves, but I've never dated them like seriously. Like I dated this 25-year-old guy last year, and oh my God, it would be those TikToks that you see where the guy doesn't like leaves the cupboards open. Like, I don't know how I would live. I don't know how I would live if the cupboards were just open. I'm not obsessive. Oh, well, I am obsessive, but I'm not obsessive about cleanliness. I think that would really drive me mad. I got the ick so bad once. I was dating this guy like 10 years ago. He invited me to the Hamptons, which 10 out of 10, I think I like literally stayed with him longer because he kept inviting me back to the Hamptons. And then I would be like, no, we're not a good fit. And then I'd go to the Hamptons, and I was like, maybe we are. But I love the Hamptons. We would go to the Hamptons, and then he would not only leave his bathing suit like on the floor, he would leave it in the exact way that it had come off. Like I could see how can I explain this? Like I could see his 2 holes for his legs. Like where they were. He literally just like took it off and left it there. Not even like, oh, threw it in the corner. And it grossed me out so much. I cannot tell you. I've never had the ick so fast and so hard that when I saw that like near the toilet. So I was like, oh, he went to the toilet and just like dropped his like bathing suit there. Like and then like I'm imagining him like doing that, like taking off a wet bathing suit. Not hot. So yeah, I've never been in a long-term relationship with someone who doesn't clean up after himself, but I really can't think of anything that's more of a boner shrinker than that. And I would really tell him that way. I think that men really need to, and I get yelled at for this a lot, where I tell men what to do. Like in our last episode, I said, this is what you do if you really want a woman to like you on a date. You don't let her switch the topic back to herself. And people were like, we shouldn't be telling men what to do, because then they're just going to do it, and then they're not going to mean it, or you know, that they're just going to perform this sort of, and I'm not, I think men really, really want to know what to do. I think they want to be told what to do very badly. It's why men go into the military, and men go into these really, you know, very hierarchical institutions, and they like hierarchy. They do. Okay. I don't know about this guy. I don't know him, but a lot of men also, unfortunately, don't have as much going on in their prefrontal cortex, and they've been catered to by women, or, you know, their entire lives. I can't even imagine this. If my mom was like struggling and I was just sitting and letting her do the dishes, like I think my mom would like cuss me out. But also she wouldn't need to, because I just don't, obviously that's not how I grew up. I mean, I was doing my laundry by the time I was like 11. I knew how to separate I knew how to make spaghetti. I knew how to do a lot of things for myself, because I had a mom that was like, you can do it. So I feel really lucky in that respect. So yeah, I think a lot of men want to be told how to be good men by the women in their lives. And this does not mean that they, you know, the whole like weaponized incompetence conversation where they just go, oh, I just didn't know that I was supposed to pick up my fucking wet bathing suit from the floor off the bathroom. No, it means like, hey, this is really bothering me. And when we go to your parents' house, I need you to take care of shit, because or else I have to do it, and that's not hot. I don't like it. It doesn't feel good. That's it. I'm starting to realize so many conversations are the problem when we go into them is that we make them way longer than they need to be. Like, you don't really need to go into an entire monologue explaining why it's bothering you, why he should be aware that his mom is getting old and is injured and that she needs help, why it's disrespectful to be doing that and to be leaving it up to you to do, why it's annoying that he's not self-aware to notice that you're doing it, perhaps. Like, I almost feel like all of those things are irrelevant. Not irrelevant. They matter, but you don't even need to explain all those things to him. All you need to say is, hey, this doesn't feel good. And then let him do the talking. Let him change and do the action, right? And if he has a million questions about it, I don't think it turns into a 3-hour fight. Like, if I could, the amount of like 3-hour fights that I've agreed to be in with a man where I've been like, that should have been an email. This fight should have been an email. This can be an email. Hey, when we go to your mom's house, I'm not going to be making food for everybody and doing the dishes. If you can't do that, then I don't want to go with you. I'm not going to be able to go with you. And that's it. It's literally a 2-sentence combo on your end. This doesn't feel good. Oh, but okay, then I won't be able to go with you. Bye. That's what I would do. I can relate to regressing when you go home. I just went home to Montreal for the first time in over a year because I lost my green card, so I couldn't travel, and it was really sad for me because I love my family, and I finally got to go home to Montreal, and it was really fun. And this was a good trip because my mom was turning 35. I wish she was turning 35. So there's this really funny family story. When my mom turned 40, which I'm going to be turning next year, I had a meltdown because I thought she was going to die. I was like, I'm sorry, you're 40? You're on your last legs, dude. Yeah, I laugh about that now. 40 is not old, but when you're 8 years old, it does feel like 90. But no, my mom turned 75 and I went to surprise her, and it was really nice and really fun to spend time together. And there was actually no fighting this time, but at Christmas, I did feel like a teenager again. Oh my God. Me and my mom were just at each other's throats. And it was just like when we were young, you know? So I do get it. I do think something sort of happens. I think it is nice to be taken care of by your parents. And by the way, I think our parents, when they get to a certain age, they enjoy it too. Like my dad's worst nightmare used to be me asking, like if I was like, hey, daddy, can you give me a lift? The eye roll I would receive. If I was asking him for a lift for a place that was a 10-minute drive, he would go, why aren't you walking, you lazy motherfucker? Even though it would be like, oh, you want a lift instead of walking 45 minutes? You know what? You know who walked 45 minutes twice a day? Me when I was 8 years old, to school, to lunch, back to school, back to my house 4 times a day, baby. Like he would just like, every time he told me the story, there would be one more journey, one more additional 45 minutes that he was apparently walking. 10,000 steps was nothing for baby boomers in the first grade. So no, my dad would be like, if it's 10 minutes, why aren't you walking? And then if it was like, well, no, it's 30 minutes. No, that's too far. So there was no winning. There really wasn't. So I had to figure things out. But now when I go home and I'm like, hey, can you give me a lift to like the metro station, which is walkable. It's a 15-minute walk. He'll be like, yeah, sure. What time? Great. Actually, he was so cute because so I surprised my mom for her 75th and I surprised them at the restaurant. And my dad, apparently, they saw me outside because I have a really bright coat. Like my coat is one of one. Like I've never met anyone who has my coat. It's really pink and bright. And I have a big pink suitcase. And so I guess they saw me outside and I couldn't find the door for the restaurant. And so I was like going back and forth. And then apparently my dad's first thing that he told my sister was like, oh no, like I could have gotten her from the airport. He's so cute. And then as soon as I sat down, it's like, happy birthday, blah, blah, blah. He's like, oh my God, wait, so when do you go back? Because I want to bring you to the airport. He was like asking me about the exact time. And I was like, daddy, like I've been sitting here for 4 minutes. Like we can talk about that later. So cute. So no, I do think parents enjoy taking care of us. And I do think we do regress. And it does feel good to a certain extent to be back in that child and parent dynamic. But I think that this is taking it a little too far. And this is the thing, like he might just not be aware. Women are too aware and men are not aware enough, talking about that beautiful spectrum. And so maybe you might need to point out some things. And then if you point it out and he doesn't do anything about it, that's when you have a longer conversation. That's when you cut him off from family visits in terms of you going. And then, you see what he does. But you're doing great, Fanny. I think that's really unfair. And I understand why you're feeling really frustrated. I would feel so annoyed. Have a 2-sentence conversation and then see what happens. Our second boy problem is coming from Ella. My husband of almost 24 years is not angry enough about the U.S. men's hockey team behavior, and I'm so hurt and disappointed. I want to scream, Liz. I hate it here, but you make it all better. Oh, thanks for the wisdom and the laughs and the hope, because what the fuck? Ella. I really get it. I think for so many women who are listening or people who are listening, right? Like it's insert something else, right? So during the pandemic, I had a really close couple friend of mine that they were fighting around like Black Lives Matter. She felt very disturbed by what was going on, very affected by police brutality. And he just kind of it's not that he didn't care, but she just felt like he should be more upset than he was. I think this is such a common issue. I think it's really hard, especially in the last 10 years of like being alive in this wonderful timeline where there's like always a reason to sort of feel upset, right? There's always something to discuss and like talk about, and sometimes you're just not going to be affected in the same way, and I think sometimes that can be really hard. I break up with guys over this. Like I've talked about this on the show about there was a guy that I was dating, on and off, or and we started talking again, and he got a Cybertruck, and I was like, this is different. I think getting a Cybertruck is like a whole other level of this, but I really don't think I'd be able to date someone who drives a Cybertruck. Like I just like, and so I think I would just express that you are hurt and disappointed. And I guess my question would be like, is he angry at all? Because if he's not angry at all, then I think it's really worth like having a sort of deeper conversation about your values. And I would want him to be curious about why you are hurt, even if he's not as hurt as you, to try and understand it. So yeah, I guess I would have a few follow-up questions. Is he often not angry enough when it comes to particularly sexism and how it affects you? We are living in very fractured media ecosystems. And so I know that for a large portion of people, they believe that was just a joke, quote unquote, and that there was nothing, offensive about it. And, these guys really respect the women's team, and therefore they didn't mean it in a way that was disrespectful. But to me, like, it's not even the joke itself, which if you don't know what we're talking about, well, you must know what we're talking about at this point. But if you're not aware, basically the men's US hockey team, when they won the gold at the Olympics, they were like literally like drinking with Kash Patel, drinking Coronas, chugging beers, and then talked to the president. And the president made a joke about like, well, I'm going to have to invite the women's team too. As if he's like forced to do it. And obviously the women's team didn't get a phone call from the president. The sort of semantics of the joke is not even the most offensive part. The most offensive part is that a predator made the joke. Like, the president is a predator to women and children. That's the part that is alarming, and that is also like scary. I think that men don't totally understand how unsafe it feels when men tolerate sexism and tolerate misogyny and tolerate hate and like violence against women, because even if that violence is not happening to us directly, it's very upsetting and really, to your point, you said disappointing, right? Like, it's so disappointing. I'm more disappointed by men who tolerate sexist statements than the ones who make those sexist statements, because I guess I expect there to be sexism, and I expect there to be a quote unquote like small minority of men who are evil and who are hateful towards women, but that I can tolerate as long as I know that there's a majority of men who would stop it. And there's something really, really disturbing as a woman watching that when you see what men do when you're not in the room. So yeah, like I think that moments like this can be opportunities for more intimacy between men and women. And if you're with the right guy, he's going to be curious about how you feel always, and particularly curious about how you feel about this, especially if it's really bothering you, right? And coming back to the media, sort of ecosystems, there's a whole swath of people like Dave Portnoy being like, oh no, it's not a big deal. I'm like, oh, they weren't laughing at the women's team. That sort of defensiveness, I think, is coming from a place of men wanting to sort of protect coming back to fantasy. Right? Like, I think men have their own fantasy about being great guys. And I think that being around really smart and brave women will often pop that fantasy. And I think that's a good thing, because fantasy is like never good, right? Like it makes you delusional. It makes you not self-aware. It makes you think that you look like JFK Jr. when you look like, Michael Scott. Steve Carell is hot, but you know what I mean? So yeah, I think it takes a certain kind of man to be around strong, amazing women. And you are a strong, amazing woman. And this is a interesting opportunity for him to show that he's a man who's worthy of being with you. And it might take time. You don't have to be more patient with people, but I do think being patient with people, giving people grace is something that feels really nice when it's extended to you. And I do think a lot about it. I've, sort of talked about the analogy on the show before, but whenever I am just at a loss with a man in my life who I think is better than that, right? Because I think that's also what you're expressing here. Like, you're disappointed in sort of him, right? He's saying, I'm not that kind of guy. I'm a great guy, and guys are great. Guys aren't bad. And you're going, no, wait, you're a good guy. You should admit that this is, sexism. So you're both really being kind of confronted with sort of a reality that you don't like. And so I do think it's good to give each other grace. And the example and the analogy that I come back to is the amount of grace and patience that people of color have extended to me on issues of race. It is, I think, crucial that I show the same grace and patience to men when it comes to gender issues that was shown to me. So I would give yourself more grace and I would give him some grace, but I would try and understand why he's not more curious about how you're feeling if you're upset about something. And maybe he'll come around, I don't know if men will ever truly understand fully what it's like to be a woman and what it was like to grow up as a girl in a patriarchal society. In the way that I will never be able to fully understand what it means to grow up as a Black person in a racist society. But I can do my best and he can do his best. And it's okay to feel disappointed that he doesn't understand it in the same way that your girlfriends understand it. Or if he doesn't understand the depth of your disappointment in the way that your mom does, right? That's where I think like community with other women is really important, and like sharing that same kind of female rage. Okay, this last boy problem is from Renee. Renee is a 43-year-old woman. Okay, I was hooking up with a hot guy who's 25 that I met at my gym. I eventually met a guy closer to my age and I've been seeing him for a few months. Gym guy has been sending me pics and steamy texts. I like it, and of course it's bad, but also I can't bring myself to delete and block. I flirt a bit and brush him off. I can't stop because I love the attention. I also really like my guy because he's attractive, the sex is good, and we have a lot in common. How do I not f this up? I've been cheated on and it sucks, but I can't help myself. Ugh, Renee, I get it. I feel like I literally had the same thing happen to me. Like, I feel like I'm reading my own story. Well, okay, in my case, we weren't like exclusive, but it was getting close. And I remember being like, uh-oh, like, this is not great. It seems like you're not exclusive yet. And so, I don't know, I don't see any issue. Personally, I don't see any issue with having a little fun as long as, you're not being like not loyal to this new guy who's a really good fit. I do think that if things get official, then you're going to have to, put down some boundaries with the 25-year-old. How do I not fuck this up? Yeah, I think the way to not fuck this up is to stop and to get things maybe more steamy with the guy that you're seeing now. Like, how can you spice things up with him, right? So instead of sending the 25-year-old cute pic, why don't you send it to the guy that you're seeing now? Because like the thing with doing this is that you are seeing someone new, which is great, and you're spending all this time together, but then you're like infusing a lot of the fun, sexy energy into someone else. Although that is fun, the more you do it, the harder it's going to be to stop. And I think the easiest way to stop is to do it with the guy that you're like actually interested in longer term. And I would block. Sorry, I think this is what I ended up having. Did I do that? Yeah. No, I think I told the guy, like you have to, I was like, if I tell him that I'm seeing someone, it will just make him do it more. And so I had to be like, I had to block him. It's hard to say no to incoming sexy stuff. It's like, you don't want to buy a bag of chips if you're on a diet. If he's available and he's sending you things, it's going to be hard not to respond. So yeah, I really think you have the right instinct here. First of all, like, congratulations. I think people who end up cheating don't have the amount of clarity that you have about what you're doing. What I think is really wonderful about this is that you're not saying, oh my God, there's this great guy, but this other guy is really hot and I don't know who to choose. Like a 25-year-old who might not, you're 43. I'm not saying you can't date a 25-year-old, but maybe this new guy seems to have more in common with you and seems to be a better partner for you. I think it's great that you're not mixing up chemistry with long-term partnership. So that's a really good thing, because oh my God, I have not always been able to do that. Like when you're turned on, when you're really excited about someone, or again, there's this back and forth with text and photos, like, oh my God, it can give you such a high. And I think that can be really confusing for a lot of people, but it seems like you're not confusing it. Like, you're liking the attention. So go get the attention from the guy that you want to be building something with. And look, like, there might be a reason that you're doing this, and you're never going to find out until you stop. I think that's the thing with doing something that is quote unquote bad, is that as long as you're doing it, you're not really able, like maybe this new guy, there isn't as much, sexual chemistry, or maybe he's not texting you enough, for example, and you want him to give you more attention. Like, I feel like when I do this is when there's something I'm kind of not communicating, or like there's something that I kind of want, but I'm not sure I'm going to get, or I don't know how to ask for. And so I kind of get it from somewhere else. And maybe this is what's happening with you. Maybe this is filling a really, hot void, and you really won't know what that, and void is like a big word, but like you won't really know what this is satisfying until you stop. And then once you stop, you'll find out, okay, how do I do this with this guy? When I was doing this with literally with a 25-year-old, I mean, I wasn't in my 40s yet, but I'd been dating a much younger guy. And then I met a guy who was like at my, stage in life. And I kind of, this other, 25-year-old was still like texting me, and I would sort of indulge in it. And I think that why I was doing that is that the guy who was my age was divorced and like had a kid. And so he was less available. And I think I was too afraid to tell him that I needed more, like that I needed to see him more. And I think it was easier for me to just be like, well, it's fine. I'm cool. I'm a cool girl. I don't have needs. I don't need to see him multiple times a week. It's fine. I'm just going to text my 25-year-old when I want attention. So anyway, I don't want to project. Just because I've been in a similar situation doesn't mean the same thing is going on. But usually when you're doing something you don't want to do, you're doing it for a reason. And so I would encourage you to take a step back, put the chips away, throw the bag away, block it, or tell the bag that you can't be talking to him in this way anymore. And you can say it in a really nice way, and then you'll have more information about what it's doing for you, and then how to get it in a way that feels healthier or more that is like building towards what you want in your life with this guy. I hope that was helpful, Renee, Fanny, and Ella. I love hearing about your boy problems. I love reading your comments. So if you loved this episode, make sure you're subscribed to the podcast. Make sure you leave a review and leave a cute comment. Okay, so on the last episode of Boy Problems, which is already going viral, which is really exciting, our episode was about whimsy maxing. If you haven't listened to it, go back. It's worth it. And the comments are coming in and they make me so happy. Tasha Grant said, did not get a little too excited at my comment being read out. Here we are reading your comment again, Tasha. This is what I'm going to do over and over again. So get used to it. Megan Walker says, if eating colossal croissants in bed doesn't scream 2026, then I don't know what does. Colossal croissants. That's such a beautiful alliteration. Amari says the size of the almond croissant is actually insane. Yeah, it's a big croissant, and yet I think it could be bigger. Erica says, what a great topic today and exactly what we need. Rach says, this episode is giving me life. Oh, Catherine said, I have a good things are always happening to me list. I have to add one good thing that happened to me that day. It turns out even when things are a bit shit, good things are always happening to me. I love that. I love lists of positive things that are happening in your life. And Read Only This said, whimsy is listening to boy problems instead of the daily during your morning walk. And that made me feel so happy to read. Oh yeah. And Kyra says, PSA for all my gluten-free girlies, a macaroon is an excellent gluten-free alternative to a croissant that totally gives whimsy energy. I love this community. I love us. That is so sweet. Yes, I used to be gluten-free and not be able to eat croissants. And really, it was like a daily struggle for me. A really good gluten-free alternative is also like a gluten-free olive oil cake. It's so good. It's so good. Also, Jimmy said, this is great insight. I'm keeping this whimsy maxing in mind. I make rezzos, thinking about dressing to meet the place, the moment, checking in during the day, show up with intention. But often I think dates go wrong with me because I struggle with going deep versus keeping it fun and flirty. Anyways, lots in this episode to consider. Also, I always try to be early and totally fine if she is late. Jimmy, you are just a walk-in boy solution, and we love it. So please keep leaving your comments. They make my day. And send a show to a friend. It really helps more people join the Boy Problems family. Please find our name. Please find a name for us. The Boy Problems family feels fine, but I feel like we can do better. Well, that's it for us. I miss you already, and I will see you next week. Bye. Com Deus me deito, com Deus me levanto.